Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we're going to talk about Dungeons and Dragons, and we're going to talk about Dragonlance Shadow of the Dragon Queen. We're in Chapter 7, and the player characters have arrived on the Flying Citadel. They're here to deal finally with Lord Soth, right? So they arrive there, and they encounter Lidara. And so Lidara is this blue-skinned, Sylvanesty elf. She's hundreds of years old. She looks corporeal, but she's actually a ghost, right? And specifically what she is she's a Sylvanesty priestess, and she was a priestess with Isold from before the Cataclysm. And so she manifests in her ghost form, right? And the whole reason she's here is to remind us again of Lord Soth's history, because the player characters need to understand what's happening. Because the Flying Citadel is a flying weapons platform that the Red Dragon Army can use to absolutely destroy Calamon. If Calamon falls, Solamnia is going to fall, okay? And this would be a huge loss for the humans, the elves, and the dwarves of Krynn, right? And so Lidara goes through the history again. And actually, so the player characters have been collecting all these clues. Like, they've seen these cataclysm flames that were found underneath Castle Calamon in the catacombs down there, with Knight Sarlamir's tomb, right? And so they've seen like parts of Lord Soth's life enacted in these cataclysmic flames, right? And basically we reach this point where Lidara kind of is here to button it up and actually like explain, like make sure that the player characters understand what's actually happening, right? So that the mysteries are being solved at this point, and they're going to piece together the pieces that they've already had. And so some of this will be like, oh yeah, I remember, right? And some of it's like, okay, you were missing this piece, and now we're gonna, so let's get into exactly who and what Lord Soth was, right? So pre-cataclysm, right? Lord Soth is a upstanding, honorable knight of Solamnia, Order of the Rose, and he's throwing it down for the Knights of Solamnia, right? He has his own keep. He has his own wife, right? He is sent out on this quest, and he rescues a group of Sylvanesty elves from a specific danger, right? And he comes across Isold, and she is this Sylvanesty elf priestess. He falls in love. Now he has a wife, right? So they part, and but he remembers her, and Lord Soth's wife dies. Literally days after her death, he goes and gets so Lord Soth goes and gets Loren Soth, that was his name then. He gets priestess Isold, and they marry. He totally dishonors his wife, right? Like, it's clear that he had already fallen out of love with her. Her death is kind of like this bitter, sweet. And the Knights of Solamnia are like, this is completely disrespectful to your wife. And, you carry our badge, you're out. And they put him out of the Knights of Solamnia, right? The Cataclysm is coming, right? And so now the gods of Krynn are like, oh, Cataclysm's coming. We task you, Loren Soth, with stopping the Cataclysm, because even though you've been thrown out of the Knights of Solamnia, your fighting certificates are still good, right? You're still the most dangerous man on Ansalon, right? So they charge him with stopping the Cataclysm. The priestesses, the Sylvanesty priestesses, Lidara was one of them, and she helped to actually lie to Loren Soth and say, oh, hey, guess what? Priestess Isold, who you just married, she was unfaithful to you. He gets so angry, he completely ignores his duty, bound by the gods, this God-given quest to stop the Cataclysm. He rushes back to his keep to murder Isold, right? And when he arrives, the Cataclysm breaks out, and with her last dying breath, from Dragonlance Shadow of the Dragon Queen, it's not from him. It seems to be from the Cataclysm itself. She curses him with her last breath and says, for everyone who dies in this Cataclysm, for every single life that is lost in this Cataclysm, you will suffer one lifetime, right? So he is doomed to like thousands of lives of suffering, right? And Lidara, this Sylvanesti priest, hundreds of years old, is still tasked with making him suffer and stopping him from being able to do whatever he needs to do. And at this point, his what he wants to do now is defeat Calamon for Takhisis, the Dragon Queen, right? And doing this with his undead dragon and all of his own undead power, right? And so we get this representation of Lord Soth's history, and Lidara lays it out, and she's like, you're not going to be able to defeat, y'alls cannot defeat Lord Soth in combat. He's going to wreck you guys. So your only hope is in this citadel, you will find the mirror of reflected past. The mirror of reflected past. The mirror of reflected past is the only way Soth can be defeated. And if he looks into it, he will be paralyzed. And when he is paralyzed, all you need to do is douse the flames of Cataclysm, because that's all that's keeping this flying citadel in the air. And if you douse those flames of the Cataclysm flames, that's it, right? So at this point, the player characters know, not only do they know they're here to unseat Soth, now they know exactly how to do it, right? And so they would wreath the flames. That will destroy the flying citadel. And at that point, it really doesn't matter if Lord Soth is still up and running, because all his plans are foiled, right? And so the player characters are tasked with this. What I was really impressed with overall is this, Dragonlance Shadow of the Dragon Queen goes all in on elves, and really making sure that you understand the importance of the Sylvanesti elves in Dragonlance history, right? And really, this is a big deal, because it majorly breaks away from dwarves being a main focus, and really focuses on the Sylvanesti elves, and we really get to know their history, and we also get to know the Cataclysm, and all of this is mechanical. This lore matters because the players need to know this to defeat the current threat, right? Whereas in D&D 1E and 2E and 3E, you just had a lot of lore that didn't matter, right? Like that, and people would keep it in their heads, and DMs were proud that they knew it. Now, if the lore doesn't mean anything to the player characters, it doesn't mean anything at all. And I love that change, and I really think it's an important thing to understand about what F. Wesley Snyder is bringing to the table. Getting to the end of Dragonlance Shadow of the Dragon Queen, I'm so thankful for you letting me share my journey through this book with you. It's been great just kind of discussing it and, setting it into my mind and making sure all of this, because I really think this is a critical Dungeons & Dragons setting. And really where we're arriving is Forgotten Realms, Dragonlance, Exandria. And I think those are the three most important settings in Dungeons & Dragons. And I'm just going to say it, I don't think we need another setting at this point. Not one, right? We need to go deeper with what we have. Every word of that is my humble opinion. What's important is when I hear your humble opinion, when you get in the comments and send your traffic. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.